Welcome to the Pencil Bob channel. I hope you enjoy my stories. Please like and subscribe, and hit that notification icon so you never miss out. Now on with the stories.
Living here has felt like one long, drawn-out nightmare, especially with everything else going on in my life. My wife and I moved into this condo hoping for some peace and quiet after a whirlwind of events. My cancer diagnosis, my sister-in-law's sudden passing, and the mad rush to relocate all in the same week. And to think we paid a year's rent up front just to make sure we wouldn't have to worry about housing while I focused on treatments. But from the moment we pulled into this gated community, it felt like the walls were closing in on us, thanks to the neighbor right next door, the president of the HOA. From the very first day, we were under their microscope. It wasn't even 48 hours after we started moving in that we got a complaint. The garage. Apparently, it wasn't being used for both cars. Seriously, we were still in the middle of moving, boxes everywhere, trying to get everything sorted, and here comes a message about our garage usage. We cleared it up pretty quickly, but I remember thinking, is this how it's going to be? Are they really going to watch our every move? Well, the answer was yes. Absolutely yes. They didn't just watch, they pounced. The complaints started rolling in after that. One day, it's that we have a car on the street when there's space in the garage. The next day, they were griping about our friend's old truck, which he'd parked on the street while he was helping us move. The guy had popped the hood to check something, and suddenly, it was a problem. A real problem. That's when my mom, who's pretty good at reading people, started to suspect that this wasn't just about the truck or the garage. She felt like it was something deeper. Maybe because we didn't fit their idea of what someone in this community should look like. Maybe because we're Mexican and they thought we didn't belong in their little gated bubble. And it's not like we're slobs or anything. We keep our place spotless. Almost obsessively so, if I'm honest. We take care of the property better than most. But none of that seemed to matter to the HOA president, who, as far as I could tell, had nothing better to do all day than peek through her blinds and tally up our supposed infractions. It wasn't long before the garage complaints ramped up. We had to send in 5 separate photos proving that the garage was being used properly. I mean, what is this? A crime scene investigation? It's a garage. You'd think they had bigger things to worry about. But no. Each time, we'd send the pictures, they'd approve them, and then a week later, there'd be another request for more photos. I started to wonder if they were hoping we'd slip up, catch us with one car out so they could slap us with another fine. Oh, and speaking of fines, let's not forget the $400 they hit us with out of nowhere. Apparently, because our landlord didn't show up to some HOA meeting, we got fined. $400. For what? Who even knows at this point? It's like they just made it up as they went along. And now our landlord's hinting that we should foot the bill. Are you kidding me? We're paying rent, dealing with endless complaints, and now we're supposed to cover his fines? The worst part is the access issue. One day, out of nowhere, our transponders stopped working. The gate wouldn't open for us. We were stuck outside, like strangers in the place we called home. I had to get out of the car and walk up to the security booth like some intruder, all while dealing with my health. The security guard, who looked more embarrassed than anything, told us our transponders had been deactivated. Deactivated? Apparently, they were under orders to shut us out. They eventually reactivated them after we spoke with them, but only temporarily. It was humiliating. And, of course, only our landlord can speak on our behalf. Not us. We live here, but we're treated like second-class citizens. And then there's her, the president, always lurking, always watching. Every time we open our garage, there she is, pretending to be busy with something, but you can see her watching, waiting to catch us doing something wrong. My mom's reached her breaking point. She's talking about finding a lawyer, maybe suing for emotional distress or discrimination. I mean, it's gotten that bad. And she's not wrong. The constant stress, the nitpicking, the outright hostility, it's wearing us down. My health is already fragile, and now we have to deal with this on top of everything else. It's maddening and hypocritical. Last week, they had a big party for their daughter, right out there in the driveway, with the garage wide open. I stood there watching in disbelief. How is that okay? Isn't the garage supposed to be used for cars? I wanted to march over there and ask her what kind of special privileges she thought she had, but my wife stopped me. She knows I don't need the added stress, and she's right, but it felt like a slap in the face. They can break the rules whenever they want, but we get fined and harassed over every little thing. It's not just the president. either. Even the realtor, the one who handled our lease, has been a nightmare. The very first night we moved in, the first night, he shows up at 9 p.m. No call, no text, just banging on our door, demanding that we clear the garage space. Who does that? We're trying to settle in, dealing with the chaos of moving, and this guy thinks it's the perfect time to throw his weight around. I couldn't believe it, and to top it off, he had the nerve to tell us that we couldn't store the trash bins in the backyard, that they had to be in the garage. At 9 p.m., who does that? My wife tried to be the voice of reason. She went over to talk to the president's husband, hoping to clear things up. Maybe it was all just a misunderstanding. But of course, he had some excuse ready. According to him, they were just passing along complaints from other neighbors. Other neighbors? We live right next door. If there's an issue, just come over and talk to us like human beings. But no, everything has to go through the HOA. Everything has to be a formal complaint. It's infuriating and exhausting. Now my mom's convinced we should fight to get some of our rent back and move out. Honestly, I don't know how much more of this I can take. Between the constant harassment and trying to manage my treatments, it's just too much. We didn't sign up for this. We didn't ask for a war with the HOA. We just wanted a place to live, to get through this difficult time with some semblance of peace. But peace is the last thing we found here. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from the landlord asking for yet another set of garage pictures. I showed it to Maria, and she let out an exhausted sigh. "This is ridiculous," she said. "We need to do something. Let's call a meeting with the HOA board," I replied. "We need to put an end to this." A week later, we sat in front of the board. Sandra was there, of course, pretending she wasn't behind all of it. I explained our situation, my illness, how we'd followed the rules, and the endless demands for photos. One board member turned to Sandra. "Are you making these complaints yourself?" Sandra fumbled for an answer. "It's my duty to enforce the rules." "And your party last week?" Another member chimed in. "Your garage was open for hours." The board exchanged looks. By the end of the meeting, they said they'd look into rescinding the fines and reconsider how complaints were handled. As we left, I knew Sandra wouldn't let this go, but at least we had bought ourselves some time. I still can't believe it's come to this. Every day feels like a new battle, and I'm tired. My family's tired. It's like living under a microscope, constantly waiting for the next complaint, the next fine, the next petty demand. And for what? So someone with too much time on their hands can feel powerful? So they can push us around because we don't fit into their perfect little community? Thanks for letting me get this off my chest. I just wish things were different. Your problem is with the landlord. The landlord is bound by the HOA rules. You are bound by the lease. All fees and rules should have been included with your lease, or the lease should have mentioned the rules and included a copy. The one problem you may have with the HOA is that they may tow your car if you don't pay the parking fee, so I would pay that. If your lease included parking, the landlord should reimburse you for the parking fee. Your lease should have contained verbiage about abiding by the HOA rules and regulations, and the owner should have provided you with the HOA documentation, including the rules and the pet info, parking info, and fees. If you had those, you would have known you can't leave a mattress out to be picked up and the rules about pets, etc. It really sounds it's not so much an HOA issue as much as it is a lazy owner-landlord issue, except for the cat noise. That just sounds like a batty neighbor who likely complains about everything. You're new and you just need to defend yourself a bit and then let that one go. If you like our stories, then please like and subscribe and comment, and remember to hit that bell icon so you never miss out. We have new stories almost every day. I remember the day I got that email about the door color as if it were yesterday. October 2020, right? I thought the color we'd chosen fit in perfectly with the look of the neighborhood. Warm and inviting, not a blazing neon or anything obnoxious. But apparently, the board didn't see it that way. We were suddenly out of compliance. Section 8.17, they claim. They were very particular about that. Section 8.17 clearly states all exterior colors must be approved. That was the line I heard over and over, as if I could snap my fingers and conjure up a paint color that pleased the board gods. The board even promised they'd meet with us directly and bring along an interior designer to help us pick something suitable. So I held my breath, expecting they'd knock on the door any day, maybe come with paint swatches and sit with us for a friendly chat. But days turned into weeks, and nothing happened. It was radio silence. I tried emailing the HOA president multiple times, asking when they planned to meet, And each time I'd get some vague promise that they were working on it. Then there was the designer, the one they dangled like a peace offering. I sent her a message, hoping maybe she'd shed some light on what colors would actually make the cut. But guess what? She didn't respond. Not after a few days, not after 2 weeks. 4 whole weeks went by, and I'd heard nothing. This supposed solution, this designer, was apparently just another empty promise. A month after our initial email about the violation, things took a twist. The board decided our violation wasn't exactly about color anymore. No, now they were saying we'd broken a different rule altogether. They pulled a different section of the governing documents out of thin air, one that required a professionally prepared proposal for any changes to the property. At this point, I was scratching my head. A professionally prepared proposal for painting a door? I couldn't help but wonder if the board was just throwing darts at the rulebook, hoping something would stick. So, fine. I asked them to show me what exactly they meant by a professionally prepared proposal. Was I supposed to hire an architect just to paint my door? I figured if they could at least give me an example, I could work with that. But when I asked, they told me, "Oh, professionally prepared plans are irrelevant now." Just like that, the goalposts moved yet again. It felt like they were testing me, seeing how many hoops I'd jump through before giving up. Determined not to let them win, I decided to take another approach. I submitted a different color for approval, a perfectly inoffensive, neutral color that anyone would consider safe. According to the rules, they had 15 days to reply. But, of course, they took 17 days, way past the deadline. By their own standards, that delay should have meant the color was automatically approved. But they just bulldozed right over that rule, insisting our color was still not up to par. It was a blatant double standard. I asked for a legal opinion at that point. I figured if they were so sure I was in the wrong, they'd have no problem showing me the law on paper. They claimed to have received this opinion and told me that legal would be contacting me soon. I waited and waited, but nothing came. No letter, no call, no follow-up. I asked them repeatedly to just point out where in the documents it said all exterior colors needed board approval. But instead of a straightforward answer, they danced around it, insisting it was all very clear without ever proving it. I took a deep dive into those governing documents myself, page by page, to see if I was missing something. What I found was the exact opposite of what they'd been claiming. Under the section on lot maintenance, there was a line about homeowners being allowed to replace and paint their doors, shutters, and windows. Only major improvements needed approval. Nowhere in there was anything about needing approval for painting the door. The word door only appeared in that single section, and it didn't say a thing about color restrictions. Then we ended up in court. Watching the HOA president take the stand was like watching a circus act. He was confident, or at least he tried to be. He declared that covenants cannot be amended for 25 years, as if that would settle the matter. It was all smoke and mirrors, though, and when he finished, one of the other board members got up there. This guy had quite the story to tell. He testified that he'd asked for approval to paint the brick on his house back in May 2018. It was denied outright, but just over a year later, 3 weeks before he joined the board, that same request was suddenly approved. Imagine that. It was crystal clear by then that the rules didn't apply equally to everyone. Fast forward to June 2021, and the board was up to their tricks again, only this time, they aimed their sights directly at my family. It started with a dramatic email blast to the entire subdivision, claiming the pool had been vandalized on June 10th. The email was filled with screenshots, and right there in the images were 3 boys entering the pool area. They'd cropped the photos to make it look like my son and his friends were the culprits. But here's the thing, they got the date wrong. My son and his friends had gone to the pool on June 11th, not the 10th. And there were 4 boys in their group, not 3. The board had deliberately cropped out the 4th kid and cut the timestamp from the photos to make their version of events seem plausible. It didn't take much digging to prove they were lying, but the damage was already done. The entire neighborhood had seen those photos. Kids can be cruel, and my son ended up dealing with whispers, side glances, and cold shoulders from people he thought were friends. Even parents in the neighborhood seemed to keep their distance after that. It was like we'd been branded as the problem family, all because the board wanted to cover their tracks with a cheap diversion. Throughout all of this, the board continued to send letters, emails, and threats as if they'd convinced themselves they were some kind of moral authority. Any shred of decency had evaporated by then. Every email from the HOA became a source of stress, a looming threat of what petty infraction they'd concoct next. The rules weren't rules, they were weapons, and the board wielded them with glee. What started with a simple door color had spiraled into a relentless campaign. Every time I thought they'd finally drop it, they'd come up with something new. It was never ending. I realized they were less concerned with maintaining the neighborhood and more focused on showing everyone who held the power. It wasn't about bylaws or compliance. It was about intimidation. Looking back, I can't help but feel that HOAs have their place, but only if they're led by people who genuinely care about the community. But with our board, it was a different story. They had made it clear time and again that they were there to serve their own interests, twisting and turning the rules to suit whatever personal agenda they had. And the rest of us? We were just stuck in their chess game, pawns in their quest for control. It's clear from your experience that the effectiveness of an HOA largely depends on the individuals serving on its board. Your frustrations with the board's inconsistent communication and decision-making highlight the challenges that homeowners can face when dealing with their HOA. Effective and transparent governance is essential for HOAs to serve their intended purpose of maintaining community standards and harmony. Thank you for sharing your perspective on this issue. What state are you in? Florida, Texas require the governing docs to be posted on a website. I'd press the transparency law if you're able. You just discovered the secret of success of every business on the planet. Yes, people, the right kind of people or person, is what makes a business TikTok successfully. It's not the HOA that is bad in itself. HOAs do work well, but only if the right people are involved. Same goes for any business model ever created. McDonald's is not a bad business model, but get a bad franchisee, an untrained manager, or a careless drive-through employee and the customer has a miserable experience. But go to one down the street with the opposite employees and you're back to loving it. So I agree with you. Perhaps members of your board are simply not the best skilled or most diligent or caring or engaged, etc. volunteers. But they did volunteer for the job most nobody wants. It's a shot in the dark with HOA boards and the people that serve.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.